I'm Geoff Sebesta. I guess everybody in this room pretty much knows each other, so I want you all to start out by asking me the toughest question you can. Anybody got some really tough questions? You can shoot them out. Go for it.
What are you running for again?
I'm running for Secretary of State, my friend.
There we go.
State referee.
State referee.
Yeah, and my role is actually quite a bit different from everybody else's. So I guess so I can talk about who I am, what I want to do, which is, probably what's going to make you like me the best. So we don't have to, we can. I can talk about what I can do for you as a Secretary of State, or I can talk about the race and who's going on and how Democrats can win in Kentucky. And that's the one that's going to make you mad. Yeah. So, any choices? Anybody want?
Why that one? Why SOS? Why?
Oh, why Secretary of State? Well, one is that I have a really serious sense of fairness, and one is that we are building a coalition in Lexington, and we're trying to get as many people to run for as many things as possible because the theory is they can't stop us all. And it was my year at bat. Last year I worked on everybody else's campaign. Next year I'll be working on everybody else's campaign. I don't expect to be at bat again until 2022. If I can push this over the top, I will. But the way I think of it to myself is like, I'm sitting down to play a game of chess with you. I may be smiling. I'm still going to try to win. So I'm going to try to win real hard. But I am running against Miss America, which is new. I didn't expect that. And that's why I chose to not go the suit and tie route, because, well, as you all know, Abraham Lincoln was a very tall man, right? And what did he do? He bought a hat that made him even taller. Well, I'm a hippie. So I'm going to stand up here and be myself. Now, what I can do for you as Secretary of State, actually I can do a lot. First things first, felons need the right to vote. Everybody needs that. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that it needs to happen right now. There's a lot more I can do. I'm very committed to transparency. I'm very committed to transparency in a much more radical sense than I think anybody else has experienced yet. The Secretary of State, according to the Kentucky Constitution, which, by the way, is a delightful document, and you have to read the Kentucky Constitution. Libertarians, you need to stand on that Kentucky Constitution, because it's got everything you like, times 10, underlined, caps locked. And you're like, it's the cool Constitution, right? It's like, U.S. Constitution, blah, blah, blah. We have the Kentucky Constitution. What it says in there is that the Secretary of State is in charge of facilitating communication between the governor, the legislature, and the people. I'm going to take that very seriously. I will publish everything, literally everything, every piece of official correspondence, all of it, instantly. You will know everything my office does, all of it. Also in the Kentucky Constitution, it says that I'm in charge of the governor's correspondence. And I'm in charge of publishing things from the governor. Now, if we've got a governor who's working with me, like Mr. Young here, you will know everything that happens in the state of Kentucky. That is a promise. Everything. There will be no secret deals. I will never, ever, ever sign anything that says top secret clearance. I can't tell you. If somebody comes to me and says, you can't tell them, I will sit down on the computer and say, this person just said what I can't tell you. Everything. Now, if I've got somebody who's working with me, like Geoff, yeah, you will know what goes on in the state. If I've got somebody in the middle, like Rocky, you'll know as much as I can find out. If I've got somebody that I'm working with who's a little bit more adversarial, and let me tell you, I'm more upset about what happened with Adeline than Geoff is, and he's the one who was assaulted. Or especially Bevan, I'm going to be doing the Lois Lane thing. I will be in their office every day saying, what's that? Can I publish that? What's on that post-it note? Everything, because that's my job. I'm the secretary. My job is to report. The other thing that I will have to do, and it's going to be different from the campaign, is I'm going to have to be really fair. You're not going to hear me talking down anybody when I'm Secretary of State. Like right here where I am right now, I'll say what Allison Lundergan Grimes did is crime and a shame, and she just blew the election for everybody. I mean, seriously, she knocked a zero off of all of our totals. We're going to have to work. And her thing about using the office of Secretary of State of Kentucky to attack half the voters in the state and stand fancy for them and call them stupid, and then to go on TV and attack their kids. Dude, no. So, it's game on for you all. You all can do what you want to. But when I'm on that stage, I will be fair to everybody. And you'll know I'm fair because I'll make you mad sometimes. That's how you know.
You ready
Yes, sir.
for the good ones?
Well, yeah. Come on, ask me some tough questions.
I'm glad you kind of brought this up. But if you would, kind of touch, because one thing that the Secretary of State has no control over is the Voter Ethics Board that has been appointed here in the state of Kentucky. If you look at to see who's on that board, I think there's 3 people from the Homeland Security that's on there.
Yeah.
You know, this past June, they sent out 601,000 postcards
Yeah.
to people across this state. When we look at a lot of the younger people and how much they are transit as far as, you know, renting places and things like this,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of those cards went back because one of the things was if you lived at that address, you got it. Well, if you didn't live at that address, you didn't get it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there has been no means if somebody doesn't make the move to the clerk's office within 30 days.
Yep.
But this is a fraughting aspect because this is another one of the voter suppression things they're using across the country, trying to purge people off the voter registration list.
Yeah.
You know, and I think Kentucky is the next state that's going to be the targeted state. We've seen this all across the South.
Yeah.
I think Missouri just got hit with it also.
Yep.
But what's taking place in South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi. So, way I see it, you're very limited on having any input, and we as the public, we can't even pull the minutes up for this voter ethics board that they have. Because I got on this thing real quick.
Well, I'll tell you.
The postman was who turned me on to this. Okay?
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden there was the drop,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he had 31,000 in his postal station of these cards, and he called me. So the first thing I did, I called Allison's office, and then I called somebody that was on the board. That was actually. And this individual didn't even know that those cards had went out that day. Now he did. I mean, within 30 minutes now, I did have some answers, but this was very frightening. When I tried to speak about this at some places, you know, it took about a week for this to really get out in the media a little bit. And I think they touched it very, very little.
Yeah. I've heard a little bit about it, but thank you for alerting me to that. I'll actually pay a lot of attention to that. I mean, okay, well, first things first, I view my role as strictly limited. It's not a legislative role. I do not have the right to go in there and tell Booker and Brown, hey, by the way, pass this bill that I like. That's advocacy. So when it comes to what I can do about things beyond my control, especially in the case of Grimes, I'll tell you right now, nothing. If it's beyond my control, if it's beyond my purview, I'm not touching it. I will avoid the appearance of impropriety. This thing, we're trying to take over the state office of elections and running things with your own lawyers in the room, you can count on me not doing anything like that. I have a plan to change the furniture. I plan to go in there. If you already work in the Board of Elections, if you work anywhere in the Secretary of State's office, your job's safe with me because I'm not going in there to burn the place down. As far as I'm concerned, we have a functioning office. People can vote. People can register their corporations. People can look up the Kentucky Land Office. I don't need to go in there and kick everybody out. I need to say, hey, what are you doing? Tell me what you're doing. Show me. And if you can't show me, we're going to keep talking. So when it comes to things that are outside my purview, that are inside the executive board, I will have an opinion, and I will say it. You probably can't stop me. But if it's not inside the Secretary of State's office, I'm going to leave it alone because there's enough to do just making sure that everybody knows what goes on in the state. And I'd like to mention something that Noah said earlier. I'm a big fan of Noah's dad. He's a great guy. Looks real good in a suit. Like, I'm envious of that. But I believe that if you don't vote, you can't complain. I think that there is an inalienable human right to complain, and I will defend that right. I think that my job as Secretary of State is to make sure that you can vote. And turnout is y'all's problem. And technically my problem right now because I'm running. But turnout is the responsibility of candidates. My job is to make sure everybody can vote. My job is to make sure that if they're pushing them off the registration on one side, I'm putting them right back on the other side. If they're saying, oh, they moved, I'm going to go find where they moved. And I'm going to take that very seriously. I'm going to try to get everybody in Kentucky registered. I'm going to advocate things like same-day registration for parties so that people aren't getting locked out. I mean, you know, the things with closed primaries and how that really affects people who are poor and people who have to move a lot. Like the closed primary thing. I didn't get to vote last year. I didn't get to vote at the Democratic primary. I worked the whole thing, and I didn't get to vote. These things are much more serious than people realize, and they affect the poor. So My job is to make sure that you can vote, that it's easy, that you can vote early, that you can vote, well, often's the wrong word, but that we have things like early voting stations in grocery stores like they have in Texas. Late voting. I want to expand the franchise in every direction I can. The reasons to let felons vote are very strong and foundational to me, I guess is the word. Because to me, democracy works for three things. Democracy is a way to make a decision. It's a way to legitimate the decision. And it's a way to make people who didn't get their way go, all right, I can wait till next time. It makes everybody feel involved. It makes everybody feel committed. When you tell people, oh, sorry.
Don't forget, and Noah, tell your dad this and the rest of you, when you talk about your elected officials and when you say if you don't vote, you don't get a say, don't forget that we have 17-year-olds that are going to vote. We have kids, and you as an elected official still represent those. You have
Exactly.
nonviolent felons, and I can think of one right now, and we did a video a couple of years ago that would love to vote, but he cannot, and his dad is an elected official in the county.
And there's
Be careful
entire
how you
neighborhoods that
say
are like
it.
that. Yeah, absolutely. I want everybody to be able to vote. I want more felons to be able to vote. I want younger people
But
to be able to
you
vote.
represent
Everybody.
everyone,
Mhm.
no matter if and how they are registered.
Absolutely. I agree with that completely. Thank you.
Did you just allude to support for dropping the voting age?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not a legislative position I've got. I can't wave a magic wand, but yep.
Where? Like how low?
As low as I can get it. It's always a compromise. Things are always a compromise. But if I could get it down to 17 in 364 days, I'd start there. Absolutely. More people need to be able to vote. A vote is an opinion. Everybody has a right to an opinion. And if your opinion is that you don't feel like voting that day, that's acceptable. My job is to protect that. So turnout, not my problem. Registration, my problem.
What are, what are your thoughts on like absentee voting with no questions, things like that?
I think that technology has advanced further than we've... Oh, okay, no question. You don't mean no security. Yeah, this thing where you have to prove that you're sick or something like that.
Right, I have to prove that I'm out of town.
Pure nonsense. I don't like that.
Right here's the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
They barely get to qualify for early voting.
Yeah.
That's the police department. They need that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the way I would spin it.
I think everybody does. I mean, the only people in this state who really get to vote early are people in nursing homes, honestly. Everybody else has to fight for it, and I'd like to change that. And actually, I think that's something that's very much within the Secretary of State purview. But as a principled thing, I will extend the franchise in every direction to the limit of my abilities as long as I'm alive. And sorry, do you have a question? No. Okay, fair enough. Well, I wish you did. Anything else? Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Part of the problem I see is a lack of education of voters. What would you do to help get voters educated so that they are voting intelligently?
Well, I'm really glad you asked that because I shouldn't take up too much of everybody's time here. I should be really fast, but I have what is within the Secretary of State's purview is the Kentucky Constitution and incorporating businesses, and I will enthusiastically create programs to promote the Kentucky Constitution everywhere that I can. I would really like it if it came back into schools. I mean, one place to start is to
Help us.
I will.
Help us.
I'm doing what I can. I really am, and I enjoy it, by the way. But I would love to just print out copies of the Kentucky Constitution and hand them out to people. I would love it if it was taught in schools. I would love it if you went to study hall. If you got in trouble, if you had to write the Kentucky Constitution out by hand, because that's why I know the Bill of Rights, I'll tell you that. A few things from the old way of doing education in Kentucky would do better without. But when it comes to kids in study hall having to write things out longhand, I miss that. I think that worked. I think that was a really good way to get kids to understand really important things. And everybody that went to study hall in my school, we all know our Bill of Rights. So that's where I'll start there. And I do agree with you that low information voters are a problem. I don't think that's my problem. I think that I have to give you the right to vote, even if you're voting for terrible reasons. And there are terrible reasons. I think voting for somebody because you like their last name is a terrible reason. I think voting for somebody straight ticket is a terrible reason. I think voting for somebody for any other reason than you know who they are, or you know what they stand for and you support it is a terrible reason. I don't think people should even vote against other people. That's personally how I feel. But it's not my job. My job is to make sure you vote. You can vote. Their job is to make sure you vote. My job is to make sure you can vote. Anything else? Okay, well, thanks. Appreciate it, y'all.